First of all, I just wanted to talk about the album title because I think everybody could kind of like resonate with it. Change phobia. It sounds like a condition that the world had to deal with this past, well, almost 2 years.
Well, I will say this. I'm afraid of people interpreting the album title as a response to COVID because it's not.
Mhm.
And it was a concept that was floating in my head for 2 or 3 years. And so I wish I could write songs quickly enough that I could respond to events. I guess I sort of did on this album with These Kids We Knew, which is responding to global warming and to COVID a little bit. And I actually had COVID when I wrote that song. But with regards to change phobia, that was an idea that, you know, I wanted to write a song about that. And it took me a few years to do it, but I didn't write it because of the pandemic.
Oh, wow. So, what was the initial inspiration for change phobia then?
it was actually like some very practical information that I received in a book. And the book said it was speaking about a certain kind of personality and how to prepare them for change.
Mm-hmm.
And that some personalities take change more difficultly. And so it was this idea that resonated in me, and I felt like it was something that applies to all of us. We all struggle with change.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I had an experience where I met somebody who told me change is good, go with it. And that resonated in my head. And so writing the song was kind of combining these different sort of different touchstones that I'd had with the concept of change in my life, and, you know, wanting to address it.
You often work with other artists on other artists on their albums. Who helped you with your record, or is this a full solo thing?
It's tricky to answer that question because I feel like I don't even know how much I learned from working with other artists until years later. And I do think I'm always learning, and I strive to always be learning. So I definitely would say that I learned so much from working with Clairo. I learned so much from working with Haim. In terms of the production of this album, it really was my own. And in terms of the lyrics, they were mostly my own. There's a couple songs where along the way, you know, I was just sharing ideas and it sort of turned into songwriting. And my friend Brad Oberhofer helped with the song Forerunner. My friend Ramesh helped with the song BO18. And definitely Henry Solomon, who played sax on the whole record, he helped me realize this vision that I had, which was to incorporate a certain era of jazz from the 1950s that he really has an extremely deep understanding of. I have a love of that jazz, but his understanding is different than mine. And so he really was a collaborator that made this record possible.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
So yeah, I did have help for sure. I would say the production, that was my own on this album. And
yeah.
And that's kind of, you know, that's kind of why I like making albums, because I like getting lost. I like working on the production for a long time. And I like not knowing if a song is going to be finishable. That there's something kind of joyful about that for me.
Oh, that is like one of the first times that I've heard an artist say that. Like in the past couple of weeks, I've talked to a couple artists and most of them say like, I hate it when it takes too long because as soon as I start to think about it too much, it just becomes an impossible project. But for you, it's the opposite, you say.
Well, I get to make these albums with other artists where I'm kind of like their espresso in the morning, just helping them complete the project.
Yeah.
To quote Kanye, actually, Kanye said that about what he wanted people to see him as, that espresso in the morning. So I get so much out of being that, and I love doing that. And then making my own records, it's like a totally different thing. It's like I want to be floating in an ocean, and I don't want to be able to see the shore. I want to be totally lost.
So I want to talk a little bit more about the artists that you collaborate with. You do that with some amazing people, Vampire Weekend, Haim, Clairo, you already mentioned them. What do you think the artists that you've produced for in the past have in common with each other?
I think that this sounds very easy, but my answer is that they're just that, they're artists. I haven't worked with people who aren't responsible for their own narrative, their own lyrics, their own, of course, I've collaborated with them on lyrics at times, but it's artists where they really have a vision, and I'm helping them realize that vision. I think that's what kind of unites a lot of the people that I've worked with.
I want to zoom in on Women in Music Part 3. It's such an amazing record. Does it also feel like your album a little bit?
It feels like a journey that we took together. No, it doesn't feel like my album. I feel like, you know, I helped bring it to life, and it was something that we made together. Mm-hmm. But I certainly think it's Haim's album. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the process was, of course, the process, and the, you know, taking the trip of the experience of making the album, that was certainly something we did together.
Yeah. Which song on that record symbolizes the collaboration between you and the band the most?
Well, I think one thing that jumps out at me is on the song "Leaning on You," I handed Danielle an acoustic guitar in my studio, and I said, "I want you to do a guitar solo on acoustic guitar." Uh-huh. And she was like, "Oh, I've never done a solo on acoustic guitar." And I was like, "Yeah, that's right. You should though." So that solo, she played it like 2 or 3 times, just improvised. And what you hear is, I think, 80% just one take. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that's just an example of, I think my role is just to facilitate that creativity, to hand her the acoustic guitar and say, "I want you to do this guitar solo, and mm-hmm. it's going to be amazing."
There's another specific song I want to talk about, because you made I Need Your Love with Charli XCX. And like, the one thing that immediately stands out are the drums. There is like, you can really recognize your drums. Do you put a lot of time into that? And what is your relationship with the drums?
Drums are everything. It's the most important thing to me. And I can't get excited about recordings that have bad sounding drums. I mean, to me, it's like, if you're a producer, you better know how to make drums sound good. That's your job. Don't try and do this. If you can't make drums that bang, don't do this. This mm-hmm. isn't for you. Find a different task in life. But I take it so seriously.
sometimes you hear stories about people putting like bricks in the bass drum, tapes, towels on the skin to make it sound a certain way. How far will you go for a good drum sound?
To me, it's so much about where you put the mics, and the most important thing to me is to keep the mics far from the drums, and that is what engineers often, I think, don't understand. And a lot of people who like learned how to mic drums in school, they know how to make drums sound like everybody else, but I don't like that. So I have put microphones like a good 20 feet away from the drums, and I've made the drum sound about those mics that are that far away.
Yeah.
So that is really my secret. I will push further away from the drums than anybody. In terms of the sound, I'll do anything. I'll do everything to make it to realize the sound in my head, and it's not just one sound, but yeah, like I'll put blankets in the kick. I also have this lambskin beater.
Yeah.
That has a really warm sound that I like sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What I also love is that you also work with, let's say, smaller artists, like Clairo. She had honestly one of my favorite, not anymore.
It's funny because I do think you could make a case that Clairo is the biggest new artist of the last 5 years now.
Oh, yes.
But it's interesting that you say that you talk about her as a smaller artist, which, yes, you're right. She was a smaller artist. Certainly when I got to know her.
Yeah, but now, because she made one of my favorite records of all time. I'm not even over exaggerating when I say that I listen at least to one of her songs every single day. What made you want to work with her?
Well, I want to say something officially. You know, Claire is not just an amazing singer and songwriter, she's also an amazing producer. And I love the production in the songs that she'd made on her own, like Flaming Hot Cheetos. And instantly I connected with her on a number of levels. So I found out she was actually a fan of mine and a fan of Half-Life, the album. And we sort of like had exchanges over Instagram, and then we had dinner one night. This would have been in May of 2019. And it wasn't a plan, but after dinner, we were both like, what, should we try to make a song? And we did. And it's the song Feel Something that we finished for her album. But from the first time that we tried to make music together, we were able to write a song and do it in about 4 hours. So I guess it's just kind of like, in some ways that was meant to be. But I like, again, like what I like about working with, the reason I like working with people in my world is I identify with the perspective from which they write their songs. So I really identified with what Claire was saying in her songs and the place she was coming from. So that's what makes me want to work with artists.
Yeah. So a collaboration I know a lot of producers are very jealous of is you collaborating with Frank Ocean. And I was just wondering, what was it like to work with him? Is he somebody who comes up with like a finished idea and it's just like work your magic, or does he give you like the freedom to do what you think is best?
I can't comment on his process in general or any other artist's process, because all of us, our processes change. We're in flux. I can say that the song Ivy, he actually performed a very different version of it live. Well, the songwriting was done, but he performed a version of it live in 2013, and you can look it up online. He may have even been at a festival in Scandinavia or the Netherlands, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But you can look up that. That's like the first performance of Ivy. And he played me a version of the song that was very similar to that live performance. And when he played it for me, and this happens sometimes, I had an idea. I was like, I know what to do. I think I know what to do with that song. And then a few weeks or months later, you know, Frank reappeared and he brought me the session, and